The Magic of Dr. John Dee. The little ceremony I described in Lesson 1 cannot be found in any other book of magic. I composed it in the spring of 2006 for the benefit of the members of my weekly magic class. It is designed as a ritual of preparation, a ceremonial drug, as it were, to safely induce an altered state of consciousness, a trance in which specific techniques of magic may be practiced and visions can occur. The components of the ritual are not, however, a modern invention. The magical implements and furniture were fabricated as faithfully as possible from descriptions found in 16th century manuscripts and items currently housed at the Bodleian Library of Oxford University, the British Library, and the King's Library wing of the British Museum. The prayers and the chants were drawn from those same ancient texts. In a group magical working, the prayers are recited in unison and the chants intoned Tibetan style, in a deep monotone chorus of 2 or 4 groups of voices. The hypnotic effect on the participants is tangible and powerful. It is not my intention, nor is it within the scope of the present work, to present a proper biography of Dee. That has been handled nicely in Peter French's brilliant biography 22 and other texts that I've itemized in the bibliography. Son of a gentleman server to Henry Roman VIII, John Dee was a true Renaissance magus and one of the most extraordinary individuals of his time. Historian John Aubrey called him one of the ornaments of his age. Dee's unique genius blossomed at Cambridge University, and his fame as a published mathematician propelled him as a young man to academic rock star status throughout Europe. It also brought him to the attention of the rulers of his world, including the future Queen Elizabeth. He was the master of scores of disciplines. He was a physician, an engineer, a theologian, an astronomer, and cartographer. He invented the nautical instruments and developed the advanced navigational charts that helped make Britannia ruler of the waves. He even coined the term Britannia. A master astrologer, he was allowed to choose the date of Elizabeth's coronation, and throughout her reign he remained her friend and counselor. Because he was fluent in many languages and lectured often on the continent, Elizabeth enlisted his services as a spy. Dee enjoyed this role very much. As a matter of fact, I believe he remained in this position until the day she died. Yes, John Dee, on Her Majesty's Secret Service, was the first agent. Dee possessed the largest private library in England and was constantly enlarging it. He was perhaps the most educated man of his day. Part of his education included esoteric philosophy, Kabbalah, alchemy, and magic, not illogical pursuits for a Renaissance magus. Magic, in particular, was a science to be explored and exploited. His approach to magic was pretty standard procedure for the day. After bathing and dressing in clean clothes, extraordinary measures for the times, unless, of course, it was May, when many people of the day took their annual bath, he would enter a room set aside for the purpose. In theory, that's how it was supposed to work. However, even though Dee was skilled at composing long and eloquent prayers, he was not very good at scrying. In 1581 he started to advertise for someone who was. He had a small measure of success with a handful of rented seers until March of 1582, when he made the acquaintance of one Edward Talbot. The partnership of Dr. John Dee and Edward Kelley would last until 1587. Their angelic magic workings for the most part concluded in 1584. During their time together they engaged in hundreds of scrying sessions of varying lengths, in which Kelley gazed into a crystal ball or a black obsidian mirror and reported everything he saw and heard during a variety of angelic communications. Dee, sitting at a nearby table with pen and ink, led the questioning and recorded everything in retentive detail. Not all of the sessions yielded profound revelations. Indeed, many appear to be attempts by the communicating intelligences to simply keep the conversation going. There were numerous instances when information received in earlier sessions was amended in subsequent sessions. There were even times when the magicians were informed that they had been deceived in earlier communications by evil spirits. The Dee and Kelley years can be viewed as having occurred in three major phases, resulting in what appears on the surface to be three separate and unique magical systems. The Enochian period was highly productive and bore much promise. In fewer than 100 days Dee and Kelley received an angelic language, tablets containing the names of elemental and celestial beings, and calls in the angelic tongue that promised to unlock the secrets of heaven and earth. With sad, almost Faustian irony, however, once the Enochian material was in their hands, Dee and Kelley did not proceed to actually operate the system in subsequent workings. They would go on to other magical adventures, attempting to impress the crown heads of Europe with their supernatural counsel. Finally, after nearly 5 years of working together, years of exhausting magical sessions, and years of traipsing their families around Europe, familiarity finally bred contempt, and the two magicians parted company without ever getting into the driver's seat of enochian magic and turning the key. Dee's complicated life would draw him back to the English court and the distracting world of political intrigue and survival. In 1588, as the Spanish Armada set sail to annihilate England's much smaller fleet, Elizabeth called again upon her Merlin. Dee shocked her courtiers by urging the Queen to not engage the Spanish Armada and keep her ships at bay, prophesying that a mighty storm would scatter and destroy the Spaniards. Elizabeth wisely heeded Dee's words. Kelley's post-Enochian years would not earn him such renown. His ambitions kept him on the continent, where he peddled the promise of alchemical treasures to the crown heads of Europe. He was knighted by Emperor Rudolf Roman II of Bohemia, but was shortly thereafter imprisoned by his royal patron for failing to manufacture alchemical gold. Dee's end was not so colorful. Elizabeth appointed him Warden of Christ's College in Manchester, but it was not a happy tenure. His wife died there during the plague in 1605. Dee returned to his home at Mortlake, where his daughter Catherine cared for him until his death in late 1608 or early 1609. How so many of Dee's manuscripts survived to see the light of the 21st century is a magical wonder story in and of itself. Several of the most important documents Dee had hidden in the false bottom of a cedar chest where they lay undiscovered for over 50 years after his death. Through a curious chain of events, the surviving material came to the attention of the illustrious antiquary, politician, astrologer, chemist, and Freemason, alias Ashmole, one of the few people in the world capable of recognizing the importance of the discovery. Thanks to Ashmole, the material was catalogued and finally housed safely in his own museum at Oxford, the British Museum, and the British Library, where, over 300 years after its reception, it captured the attention of S. L. MacGregor Mathers, Will Westcott, and the adepts of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, then Aleister Crowley, and now you.